Welcome back to Simplified. In these sessions, we've been talking about how life can become complicated. That complication brings stress and anxiousness. It affects our relationships with each other, our relationship with God, and even our relationship with self. And that just doesn't need to be. It's kind of like alignment. When things get out of aligned on your car, everything just kind of falls apart. The tires wear unevenly, the car pulls this way and that way. It becomes more difficult just to drive down the road. It causes fatigue, makes the ride less enjoyable. But when you realign the car, when you get everything back together, the ride is smooth. It's much easier to drive. There's no pull, there's no drag. It's just you going to where you intended to go. That's how it is in life as well. When our life gets out of a line, things wear unevenly. Our relationships become a little stressed. Things get a little strained, but it doesn't have to be that way. The prophet Micah tells us what's necessary in life to bring that alignment. And here's what he says. He says, what God is looking for in men and women is quite simple. Did you catch that? Quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. It's quite simple, Micah says. Those things bring balance to life. It brings right alignment. The Apostle Peter knew a few things about being in alignment with God. In the book of Acts in chapter 12, he found himself in prison by King Herod. The trial had already been set, the verdict had already been determined, and he was going to be put to death, regardless of what had happened. But the night before he was to be executed, an angel appeared to God. And Peter was so aligned with God that he could hear what the angel had to say to him. He could receive that message and the messenger, and he acted on it. And in that acting, there was a miraculous escape right in front of everybody. God provided for Peter. And Peter, because he was aligned with God, was able to act on it. Those same principles apply to us. When we're aligned with God, we're able to receive God's message. We're able to receive the people that God puts in our lives, and we're able to act on that message. And acting on that message and following what God has desired for our life brings that alignment that we so much need and brings us peace and less anxiousness. We aren't feeling caught. We aren't feeling guilty. We aren't feeling controlled. I know I've had those things in my own life. I've had that caughtness kind of feeling. I've had those moments when it felt like everything was pressing in and there was no escape. One of those areas in our life that we feel that most is often around money and possessions. They become what define us, and they become what control us, and they become the way that we try to live out our dreams and values. And quite simply, that's not right alignment. Our identity and our alignment really comes from God, not from our possessions or things. And that out of alignment kind of feeling, well, it brings stress to our relationships. It brings discontent to our hearts. It causes us to be anxious and troubled. Again, I know, I've been there, I've lived that kind of way. So what is it that we can do to bring alignment? What is it that God would tell us? Well, the first thing is this: acknowledge that all that we have comes from God. You might say, well, I worked hard to earn what I did. Yes, you did. But who provided that opportunity? Who gave you those skills? Who gave you a mind to act that way? God did. Give God thanks for that. Bring alignment in acknowledging that God is the source of all that you have. And then live joyfully within God's provision for your life. We don't need to want what everybody else has. We don't need to look enviously at what everybody else is doing. We can be content with what God has given us. I recently saw a picture of rich and famous homes, and it was showing all these multi-million-dollar homes, and then it shot to Jimmy Carter's home, our president. You know, and he moved back to the same home that he occupied before he was elected president. That home is valued at $167,000. It's 2 bedrooms. He built it in 1961, and it's where he and his wife have lived and enjoyed their family. He's content with what he has. He doesn't need everything else. Are we able to live saying, what I have is enough? And then we get alignment by honoring God with our proportionately giving to what God desires in the world to happen, by giving to God's causes, by giving to God's opportunities for us in life. And by giving proportionately in that kind of way, the Bible calls that a tithe, we're able to say, God, I put you first. I'm honoring you by doing what you've asked me to do. Now, I know that's a tough subject for many of us. It was for me too, but I just ask you to consider, are you giving to God's causes in a way that allows you to live with joy, or in a way that's causing you to live with some regrets? And then always have an open ear to God. If we have an open ear to God, we're able to hear God's message, and we're able then to respond to his nudges, and those nudges will lead us in the right direction in life. It's quite simple, really. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously and see what will happen with the alignment in your life.